Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. This video is about Genesis 4. Remember, I'm not gay. And obviously I have the upper hand. And so one of my acts of mercy, in a sense, is going to be calling for discussion. I call for discussion. If you want to mitigate, if you care at all about your offspring or yourself or your family or the inhabitants of the earth, you need to realize that I'm in charge, that I've won. And you need to at least discuss with me how things should be, because at the end of the day, your offspring are cut off from God. No one should reproduce no matter what. So in this story, again, you have to look at it in terms of the golden rule, which sums up the law and the prophets, right? It's the essence of the law and the prophets. And that I did not come to abolish what the law was trying to do, but to fulfill it. Okay, so Genesis 4. In this chapter, you'll see that there's a mark given to Cain with the number 7. Okay, that he'll be avenged 7 times over if he's killed. And we see that with Lamech too, where he argues that he should be avenged 77 times. And we know that God has a scale that he's using for vengeance, because we see that 7 applied in Revelation with the punishments, what have you. So Adam, or the man, made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. Cain sounds like the Hebrew for brought forth or acquired. She said, with the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man, or have acquired a man. Later she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now Abel kept flocks, and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord, and Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Remember, the ground is cursed, and it's called being downcast, right? Going down, going into the earth. And the snake is crawling on the ground, and so on and so forth. Then the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, again, if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. So just like these worms who are, interfering with these videos, sin is ruling over them because they're not men, right? John 8, whoever sins is a slave to sin. And folly is in the heart of a child, right? Folly is an unruly woman. So like these little girls who are scared to man up in fraternities and the military and the police, and they're doing these childish things to their extreme disgrace. Okay. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, let's go out to the field. While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. And the Lord said to Cain, where's your brother Abel? I don't know, he replied, am I my brother's keeper? And again, remember Proverbs 18:9, one who slackens his work is brother to one who destroys. There's a lot of reasons that the answer is yes, to some degree. The Lord said, what have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. So the ground is still cursed, mind you, spiritually speaking, right? It's not yielding, in terms of the earth is cursed to never bring forth a planet that's going to last forever, right? But there's also the potential for them to redeem the spiritual aspect of the ground. So Cain is driven away from heaven, and his offspring are driven away from heaven. So he's kind of become yoked to the ancient serpent, the devil, the snake in the garden, what have you. So it's like the curse of the neo-colonists, right, and all other rebels, right? We see that also in the parable of the unfaithful servant, and in Proverbs where it says no one can be established in wickedness, and the parable of the 10 virgins, right, the 10 minas, the bags of gold. We see it's a recurring theme that because people are not scrambling to get ready, and instead of reinforcing the neo-colonial lies and the propaganda of America and England and what have you, in Germany, they find themselves screwed like the nation of Israel. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth. Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I'll be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. But the Lord said to him, not so, or very well. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over. Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. We'll get to this later where it says that people aren't supposed to shed their blood, shed each other's blood. You know, you're not supposed to spill the blood of mankind, but the exception is if you're in the divine order. That's why in Leviticus, God is telling them, yes, under certain circumstances, kill people. And we see that with the wars and so on and so forth. So it's saying you yourself are not supposed to kill anybody, but the Spirit of God through you is allowed to kill. You know, in that case, you're allowed to kill people. In that case, and of course, you have to obey God through me, and so on and so forth. All right, where are we here? And I have no plan as it stands to kill anybody in that sense. Okay, so then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. Again, this is the mark. We see the mark of the beast, and we see the 7. We see a lot of connections there, right? There's the world is cursed. There's the 7 trumpets, 7 seals, 7 thunders, 7 bowls, 7 churches, what have you. And we see also that there's a mark of the beast, right? The beast is like Cain, who is one with the snake. The snake is wandering and is cursed relative to the ground, just like Cain is cursed relative to the ground. And of course, Cain connects to Canaan. And we'll clear up the mess that people have created, at least for the viewers, as we get into the later videos where I prove definitively that Ham was never cursed. As I prove definitively that Japheth and Shem are actually the main kind of antagonist groups in the Bible, right? And why that is. It has to do with what happens when God chooses Nimrod and how people respond to it with the Tower of Babel. We'll get to that. When we look at this, it lines up with what we see, right? It says, why don't you judge for yourselves what is right? Luke 12:57. Okay, you know them by their fruit. Who has the fruit, right? The soul brother. But it's not all black people. It's a specific group, right? Narrow is the way. And after my flesh dies, no matter what race you are, you won't be able to represent God fair and square and in reality. But people must know the truth about this no matter what. Even if that wasn't the case, and obviously it is the case, they should still know the truth about what happened in Genesis 9. They need to know the truth about how that connects to Genesis 10 and Genesis 11. And again, you know, we see it in Proverbs, so you have to use insight. And we see that in Proverbs 23, where it says that you need to really use wisdom and insight and really try really hard. And then it explains it for you, and it connects itself to Noah and him getting drunk and why that was a sin and why he wakes up in a stupor like it says in Proverbs 23. We'll get to that. Okay, so where are we here? So Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod. Nod means wandering, right? See how these words factor into Cain, Canaan. Nod means wandering. Okay, Cain means brought forth or acquired. So he brought forth sin, and he's wandering like the snake. He brought forth the devil, right? And he wanders east of Eden. And the east of Eden, again, the east, right? Babylon's in the east, right? Assyria, you know. And also we see that with the connection between Babylon, the Garden of Eden, the Tower of Babel, Nimrod, right, the cherubim, and so on and so forth, right? The cherubim going back to the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order, cherubim, see Heru, Bim. We see Nimrod, okay, as being connected to the cherubim and the angels because he's a mighty warrior for the Lord like the angels are. And same thing with David in the story, right? And the connection between David and Nimrod. I went over that in the last video or something, but we're going to go over that more thoroughly when we get to that. Okay. So Cain made love to his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad was the father of Mehujael, and Mehujael was the father of Methushael, and Methushael was the father of Lamech. Lamech married 2 women, one named Ada, and the other Zillah. Ada gave birth to Jabal. He was the father of those who live in tents and raise livestock. So you see this kind of, we see people are kind of given credit for their blessings according to this at least. His brother's name is Jubal. He was the father of all who played stringed instruments and pipes. So we have the tents and the livestock and the instruments and the pipes. Zillah also had a son Tubal Cain, who forged all kinds of tools, out of bronze and iron. Now keep in mind that this doesn't mean that these people really are the inventors of these things. Because remember, Abel had worked the livestock and he did it in a way that was pleasing to the Lord. But then they killed Abel. So he's laying it down, the foundation for the satanic version of these things here. Warfare, raising livestock, building tents and buildings like the Freemasons, so on and so forth. Okay. The tools, the bronze and iron, right? So Zillah also had a son, Tubal-Cain, who formed all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron, or who instructed all who work in bronze and iron. Again, it's satanic craft, right? Freemasonry and things like that. Tubal-Cain's sister was Naamah. Lamech said to his wives, Adah and Zillah, listen to me, wives of Lamech, hear my words. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times. So he has his own conception of how things should be. And he thinks he can one-up God, like, the king of Assyria and Lucifer are said to try to one-up God, and so on and so forth. Adam made love to his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Set. Set probably means granted. Now, this is part of where there's a jigsaw puzzle in the Bible. Okay? And also keep in mind that the offspring of Set, the vast majority of them, are evil. Thus, Set, in a sense, is associated with evil. But at this point, it doesn't clarify that. God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him. Set also had a son, and he named him Enosh. At that time, people began to call on or to proclaim the name of the Lord. So if we look at it as Set populates the world, so does Cain, and so on and so forth, we see that there's an increase of wickedness because of their children. And so we see that eventually Noah's going to come, and God chooses him specifically because he's blameless, and he makes a covenant with him, which predates the covenant with Abraham. And Abraham's covenant had to do with the spiritual work of God, not the flesh of Abraham. Well, we'll get to that. Really quickly, let me just show you that this wordplay is a waste of time, right? It's called spelling it out for people who don't get it the first time. So Adam is a play on words for Adamah, meaning ground. Someone said that it means something to the effect of red, and that connects to the red wine. It connects to the snake bite that produces blood, which is red. And that we'll get to that when we get to Proverbs 23 and Genesis 9. Anyway, so Adam, mad a, made a, day, mad, mad isn't crazy, right? Eve, av a, av alpha, av I, av o, av u, av e, what have you. Okay, ea, inky, going down, right? The V can be an arrow pointing down. So again, it just tells you what you know already. Okay, that the righteous person is mad about reproduction, so on and so forth. Cain, in ice, nu C alpha, CIA, no C as in the sea of people, SEA, alpha, so they don't want you to see the true alpha, they're covering it up, and it goes on and on with stuff like that, right? Enoch, right? No new, no, you get no hawk, new hick, new huckleberry fin, there's something there, and it goes on and on with stuff like this, right? And we could go through the list of it. Irad, right? I ra meaning evil in Hebrew, ID raw, and stuff like this, ID rude, ID rod, right? They're trying to rule, what have you, and the rest of it is just the same as I don't want to go too over time here. Let's just go to add alpha ha, ha day, ha alpha d, zillas, right? Ha Els, okay, Hells, Alpha, and it goes back to the Hells in which they sacrifice their kids to Baal, and it goes back to Hell being, Hell as H-E, double hockey sticks, as they say, Hell as Hades, right? And so on and so forth.